I still hear the screams sometimes. Not the happy, shrieking kind that used to echo across the lake during Capture the Flag, but the other kind. The kind that starts in your chest and claws its way out when you realize something is very wrong. I was 12 the summer I went to Camp Willow Creek. It was my first time away from home, and I was equal parts terrified and exhilarated. The camp was postcard perfect. Towering pines, a glassy lake that mirrored the sky, and cabins that smelled like wood smoke and bug spray. And then there was Jake. Jake was the kind of counselor every kid wanted to be around. He had this way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the room, even if the room was just a dusty trail or a fire pit surrounded by giggling preteens. He could turn a boring nature walk into an adventure, spotting animal tracks we'd missed, or pointing out constellations we'd never noticed. The night it happened, Jake was leading a night hike, a special treat for the older campers. I remember the way the fireflies pulsed in the dusk as we gathered near the mess hall, flashlights in hand. Jake stood at the front of the group, his own flashlight tucked under his chin, casting eerie shadows on his face as he pretended to be a ghost. "Stay close, stay together, and don't wander off," he said, wagging a finger. "The woods get weird at night." We laughed. Of course we laughed, because Jake was joking, except now, I think maybe he wasn't. The hike started normally. We followed the trail, our flashlights cutting shaky beams through the trees. Jake pointed out owls, told us which plants were safe to touch, and which would make us itch for days. Then about halfway through, things got quiet. Too quiet. No owls, no rustling leaves, just this heavy silence. That's when we heard it. A snap, like a branch breaking underfoot, but not from the trail, from the trees to our left, deep in the dark. Jake's flashlight swung toward the sound. "Hello?" he called. No answer. One of the girls, Emma, giggled nervously. "Probably just a deer," she said. Jake didn't laugh. His shoulders were tense. "Let's keep moving," he said, but his voice was different, sharper. We kept walking, but the air felt thicker now, oppressive, like the trees were leaning in. Then behind us, another sound. Not a branch this time, a shuffling, slow, deliberate. Jake stopped. So did we. "Okay, guys," he said too calmly. "I want you all to turn around and walk back to camp. Now! Stick to the trail. Don't run, but move fast." Emma's voice trembled. "Aren't you coming?" she asked. Jake didn't take his eyes off the trees. "I'll be right behind you," he replied. We didn't argue. We turned and walked, our flashlights bobbing wildly. I was near the back of the group, and I swear, just before the trail curved, I glanced over my shoulder. Jake was still standing there, his flashlight aimed at the tree line, and just beyond the edge of the beam, something moved. A shape, tall and thin, swaying slightly. Then the trees swallowed the light, and Jake was gone. By the time we reached camp, we were sprinting. The other counselors took one look at our faces and knew. A search party went out within minutes. They called Jake's name for hours. They never found him. The official report said he must have gotten lost. Maybe he'd slipped and hit his head. But we knew better. The campers who'd been there that night knew. Because in the days after Jake vanished, strange things started happening. Food went missing from the mess hall. Not snacks, whole meals, ripped apart like something had gnawed on them. Cabin doors, locked tight at curfew, stood open in the morning. And sometimes, just before dawn, kids would wake up to hear something scraping against the walls, like fingernails or claws. The worst was the night Emma screamed. She swore she saw Jake outside our cabin window. Not the Jake we remembered. His face was gaunt, his eyes too wide. He pressed a finger to his lips, like he was begging her to stay quiet. Then something yanked him backward into the dark. Camp Willow Creek closed the next summer. Too many incidents, they said. Too many parents pulling their kids out. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I think about Jake's last words. "The woods get weird at night," he said. I never used to believe in monsters. Not the kind that hide under beds, anyway. But after that summer at Camp Cedarbrook, I learned that real monsters don't need fangs or claws to terrify you. Sometimes, all they need is the dark. It was my second year at camp, and I was finally one of the older kids. My friends and I had claimed Cabin 7, the one farthest from the counselor's lodge, tucked right at the tree line. We loved the privacy, until the night we realized privacy meant no one could hear you scream. The day had been perfect. Canoe races, s'mores by the fire, ghost stories that left us shrieking with laughter. By lights out, we were exhausted but still buzzing, whispering under our blankets, long after the counselor's final rounds. That's when the silence hit. No crickets, no wind, just this thick, suffocating quiet, like the woods were holding their breath. Then, crash! Something heavy slammed into the side of our cabin. The walls shuddered. We froze. "What was that?" whispered Mia, her voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, the rustling started. Slow at first, like footsteps dragging through dry leaves. Then faster and closer. I grabbed my flashlight, my hands slick with sweat. The beam shook as I aimed it at the window. That's when we saw it. A shadow, tall and hunched, standing at the edge of the trees. Moonlight glinted off something in its hand. Was it a knife? Was it a branch? My brain short-circuited, too afraid to decide. "Someone's out there," Jake hissed, pressing his face to the glass. Then softer. "Oh God, it's looking right at us." The figure tilted its head, like it heard him. We scrambled back, knocking over chairs, stifling whimpers. Mia fumbled for her phone. No service, of course. The rustling came again, circling the cabin now, scritch-scratch against the logs. Then a new sound, fingernails dragging down the door. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks. It was deliberate, mocking. We didn't breathe, we didn't blink. Then, silence. "Maybe it left," Jake whispered after an eternity. That's when the doorknob twitched. I don't remember screaming, and I don't remember running. Just fragments. Cold grass under bare feet, counselors shouting, flashlights cutting through the dark like sabers. By the time help arrived, the figure was gone. But it left something behind. On our cabin door, etched into the wood with something sharp, were 2 words, "Found you." The camp shut down for a week, and police searched the woods. They found footprints, a shredded backpack, but no intruder. Just rumors, an escaped mental patient, a local hermit, even a ghost story about a lost camper who never stopped playing hide-and-seek. They never caught whoever, or whatever, it was. Camp Cedarbrook reopened with new fences, security lights, and a strict no Cabin 7 rule. But sometimes, when the wind dies and the woods go quiet, I swear I still hear those 3 knocks. And I wonder, what would have happened if we'd opened that door? I still hear their laughter sometimes. It drifts through my dreams on humid summer nights, that carefree chorus of voices that once filled the woods at Camp Maple Falls. I can almost smell the pine needles and bug spray, feel the sticky marshmallow residue on my fingers from evening campfires. But then the dream shifts. The laughter turns to screams, the warm firelight to the cold beam of a search party's flashlight, and I wake up gasping, my sheets damp with sweat. Because I was there when the disappearances started. It happened on July 12th, during what should have been a routine nature hike. I was 12 that summer, old enough to be trusted with the younger kids, but still young enough to believe the woods were just woods, not places where bad things happened. Our counselor, Mark, led us down the sunflower trail, pointing out animal tracks and edible berries. The group was lively, 8 kids, including Tommy and Lila, 2 siblings who stuck close to each other, always whispering and giggling. We stopped for lunch near a creek, and that's when things went wrong. Mark did a head count before we packed up. Then again. Then a third time, his voice tightening. "Has anyone seen Tommy and Lila?" Silence. They'd been right behind us minutes ago. We called their names, first casually, then desperately, our voices bouncing off the trees. The forest, usually so full of sound, had gone eerily still. No birds, no rustling leaves, just silence, thick and suffocating. The search lasted for days. Police dogs, drones, volunteers combing every inch of the woods. They found nothing. No footprints, no torn clothing, no signs of a struggle. Just 2 abandoned water bottles near the creek, their contents still half full, as if the kids had simply evaporated. The camp tried to keep things normal. They assured us it was a tragic accident, that Tommy and Lila must have wandered off and gotten lost. But 3 weeks later, it happened again. This time, it was during a late-night game of hide-and-seek. The counselors had forbidden it after dark, but a group of us snuck out anyway, giddy with rebellion. The rules were simple. No leaving the main campground, no going near the woods. We didn't even realize 2 kids were missing until the game ended. Ethan and Zoe never came back to home base. We found their flashlights near the edge of the trees, batteries dead, their beams flickering weakly like dying fireflies. One of the girls, Sarah, swore she'd seen something moving in the shadows just before they vanished. A tall, thin figure, its limbs too long, standing perfectly still between the trees. But when the counselors pointed their lights in that direction, there was nothing there. After that, the camp unraveled. Parents pulled their kids out in droves. The police returned, this time with divers and cadaver dogs. But again, nothing. No bodies and no clues, just whispers. Some of the staff believed the kids had stumbled into an old tunnel system. Camp Maple Falls had been built near an abandoned mining town, and rumors swirled about hidden shafts beneath the forest floor. Others thought it was an animal, a bear, maybe, or a mountain lion, though no tracks were ever found. But the older campers, the ones who'd been coming for years, told a different story. They talked about the Whisper Man. According to legend, decades ago, a groundskeeper had gone mad and vanished into these same woods. Some said he still lurked among the trees, watching, waiting for children to stray too far from the group. They said if you listened closely on silent nights, you could hear him calling your name in a voice that wasn't quite human. I never believed in ghost stories, but after that summer, I stopped sleeping with my back to the window. By August, Camp Maple Falls was a ghost town. Only a handful of us remained, our parents either too busy or too skeptical to pull us out early. The counselors were jumpy, doing head counts every hour, their flashlights sweeping the tree line long after curfew. On my last night, I woke to the sound of scratching. At first, I thought it was a branch against the cabin wall, but then it came again, slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wood. I lay frozen, listening as it moved along the side of the building, pausing near the window. That's when I heard it. It was a whisper, not my name, not words exactly, just sounds. Wet, guttural, like something trying to remember how to form human speech. I didn't move, and I didn't breathe. The scratching crept closer to the door, and then a single, soft tap on the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would go away. When I finally found the courage to look, dawn was breaking, and the cabin door stood slightly ajar. There were muddy footprints on the floor, small ones, the size of a child's. Camp Maple Falls closed for good that year. The disappearances were never solved. No bodies and no suspects, just 4 missing children and a forest that kept its secrets. Sometimes when the wind blows just right, I swear I can still hear them. Tommy, Lila, Ethan, Zoe. Their laughter tangled with the leaves, their voices calling from a place I can't follow. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I wonder if they're really gone, or if they're still out there, playing hide and seek, waiting to be found.